Sure. I'm trying to see if I can feed to Facebook.
Well, I just texted John that the live stream was active. He said he was ready to go, so. I'll see if there's any issues. Let's give it a second just to make sure. Yeah, the shield, there's a yellow thing that says enabled, one exception, live stream. You're connected to Zoom global network via data centers in the United States. I'm not super concerned about that.
Are you Dan Pilch? I can see your eyebrows.
No, I'm not concerned about it. It's a public meeting anyway, so
Okay.
if somebody wants to eavesdrop on something that's public anyway, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's a warning. Every time we use Zoom now, there's new icons for different functionality that they keep adding for safety. Like when I hit the record button, you'll see it'll flash up, you're being recorded. It'll say it all to all of you live. But I think that this is exactly for that. It's if you're using, if you're having a secure business meeting and there's a possibility somebody, this is all public. I'd only be concerned if we were in non-public, which we're not going to be, so.
Right. All right, so let's get going. It's past 6:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Tonight's Town Council meeting number 15-21 held remotely on the Zoom platform for what is expected to be the very last remote meeting of the Freeport Town Council, at least for the foreseeable future. Today is Tuesday, June 15th, 2021, and the time is just a couple of minutes past 6:30. We will start with attendance, and I'll go over a couple of parameters about how to participate on the Zoom platform as a member of the public, just in case anybody would like to participate. But first, let's find out who's here. And like all of our votes this evening, we need a visual and auditory confirmation of your vote. So we'll practice that now by calling all councilors by name to see if they're present. Councilor Whitney.
Here.
Councilor Riley.
Present.
Councilor Pilch.
Here.
Councilor Bradley.
Here.
Councilor Daniele.
Here.
And the chair, John Egan, is here. Chip, I believe, is going to be joining us. I haven't heard that he's not here, so he might just be a little bit late. Okay, our first order of business on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please direct your attention to the flag behind Councilor Whitney and join me in reciting the pledge.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Okay, so our first action item is to review the minutes and waive a reading of the minutes held for meeting number 14-21 held on June 1st, 2021, and accept the minutes as presented. Any comments or questions about the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and Sharon, let the record show that Councilor Lawrence is now with us. We'll go ahead and take a vote on the minutes. Councilor Whitney?
Yes.
Councilor Riley?
Yes.
Councilor Pilch?
Yes.
Councilor Bradley?
Yes.
Councilor Daniele?
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence?
Yes.
Thank you. And the chair votes yes. So the minutes are adopted from the June 1st meeting as presented. Thank you very much, Sharon.
Welcome.
Our next order of business is announcements, and I have just a couple, and then we can go around the Zoom screen here and see if we have others. I just want to remind folks that Freeport High School varsity baseball is in the playoffs, and they're in their final round game for the regional bracket tomorrow, Wednesday, playing Greeley. I believe it's at Greeley. Freeport baseball has had a resurgence in the past several years, and they're doing very well again this season. So I encourage anybody to make their way over to Greeley High School tomorrow afternoon. Also announced that the fireworks show for July 4th is on. We will be having fireworks in downtown Freeport. It is a controlled show, generally in the open space where the track and field is next to the high school. As a reminder, Chief Goodman reminds me to remind you that fireworks are prohibited for discharge in private residences anywhere in the town of Freeport. And I also want to just not miss an opportunity. We're going to hear a little bit more in a few minutes about the activities and ideas and momentum building for our downtown action plan. We've gone through an extensive visioning process with an enormous amount of public input, over 2,800 bits of public input, whether surveys or comments or interviews. And so we have a lot of ideas. Our action team, led by consultants from Principal Group, have a suggested starting list of 13 possible programs, which we discussed in detail at our last meeting. And we're going to be hearing a little bit more about those this evening. But I just wanted to remind folks who might be listening in the public that the entire council is focused on this. And I've, in an ad hoc manner, engaged with 3 counselors to form a working group conduit between the actual action group that is led by Councillor Whitney and Councillor Pilch and the general public. So Councillor Jake Daniele is going to be joining those 2, Councillor Whitney and Councillor Pilch, in a ad hoc action group. And we're going to be having some regular transmission of information and hopefully a big giant listening ear for members of the public to provide continued feedback and ideas about how we're doing with some of these things that we're going to try out. So get ready for seeing some different things. Get ready for some change. I know change makes some people nervous, but change can also be exciting because it can bring new things that you hadn't even imagined. So our working group of Councillor Daniele, Councillor Pilch, and Councillor Whitney will be your conduit for finding out how things are going and what's going on, and a place to bring your ideas. And we'll be hearing more from Councillor Whitney in just a few minutes at Information Exchange. Any other announcements to share? Councillor Riley?
You talked about the baseball team. How about the women's lacrosse team?
I don't have those details, but I saw that in the paper, Doug. Thank you for reminding me. The Freeport varsity girls lacrosse team is doing a fabulous job in their postseason. I don't know what their status is. Do you know where they are in their playoff bracket?
Councillor Bradley, no.
The Freeport girls varsity team is ranked #1 in Class C in the state. They won their first game against St. Dom convincingly on Saturday. They play tomorrow afternoon against Lake Region at our field at 4 o'clock. And if they win that, they're in the state championship game at Fitzgerald Stadium in Portland on Saturday. So I would encourage you to come and watch an exciting group of young women perform lacrosse at a very high level.
That's great. I didn't know they were that close to the state championship game. That's fantastic.
Can we get that posted on our sign?
Great
Yeah,
idea.
excellent idea. Both of those, both the baseball and the girls lacrosse should be on the sign, just to get folks interested and motivated.
Yeah, and just to keep the announcement about the congratulations to the high school seniors, because that was requested that we would put that there. But we can have multiple messages going.
Sure, sure. Other announcements to share before we get to information exchange? Okay, so we'll move to information exchange for members of the public. This is a chance for council members to share latest updates, feedback, applause, criticism, ideas from their various committee assignments and other constituent engagements in the general public. This is an informal conversation, so there's not really a lot of structure to how we go about it, but it's a chance for councilors to share what they're hearing and what's going on. Councilor Riley?
The ordinance committee has met and brought up the issue of noise and the revision of the noise ordinance. And we will continue to meet on this. We will have a meeting next week and hopefully be able to present language to council for the first meeting in July for the approval. We've had some very good input from some constituents, and it is rounding into shape. This does not include airboat noise, but we might be able to add some interesting features to the airboat discussion in this process. So stay tuned. We meet again on the 21st.
Thank you, Councilor Riley. Councilor Bradley?
Yeah, to follow up with Doug's comment, I had a meeting with the Shellfish Commission, and not surprisingly, after a great presentation by, I think, the 7th grade on its work in the harbor with clam recruitment, which was really unbelievably sophisticated to me. I know clams, I eat them, I dig them, all that stuff, but this was just surprisingly good information developed by young people with great supervision and freedom. So congratulations to that program. After that was presented, there was a in-depth discussion of the airboat issue. And the commission has asked me to explain to the council that of the 2 proposals that Dan Walker made, one was restricting access to airboats to hold over the summer and give the legislature a chance to do its study. And the second was to work with clammers to see if we could, in a collaborative way, find a way without regulating airboats, reduce the noise from airboats. So some of the concerns of the people in the shorefront could be addressed by agreement. And Shellfish Commission was quite enthusiastic about using that alternative as opposed to an ordinance or a restrictive access solution to the problem for shorefront owners. They are going to take a proactive position by contacting the airboat operators, and they'll be back to us with suggestions or at least explanations about the results of their contact. And I would encourage us to explore that option initially and to see if we can get some resolution of this without the kind of combat that occurs sometimes when 2 groups of people don't communicate well.
Thank you, Councilor Bradley.
I have one more. I have
Yeah,
one
go
more.
ahead.
This past week, there was a meeting held at the Island Rover. Peter and Earl were there for us. Carter Becker's attorney was there explaining Carter's views. Harold Arndt and his attorney were there. And I think a very productive understanding was reached about how to proceed with the cleanup of the site. It'll go in 3 phases. An initial phase where the town and Harold and Carter collaborate on getting, let's call it the agreed upon junk out of the area. We were allowed to commit by council approval to 2 days of town effort, and that's all we're going to put into it in the beginning. We may come back when we see what that produces. The second phase would be Harold trying to get rid of the things that he believes has value and the various ways he has to get rid of them and still not lose their value. And then in the third phase, there would be again, a coming together to look at what's left and see what to do about it. At the beginning of that phase, there's been some informal discussion about sharing plans for the launching of the Island Rover. And it's the very early stages of talking about that prospect. And, I think if we have good results cleaning the site up and have good momentum, I think we may be able to at least present a plan to whoever the site is that the plan involves. And it may involve the town as well. It will certainly involve the town as well. And we'll bring that back to the council when it's done. So I'm encouraged. Again, no guarantees, but so far everybody seems to be working in good faith with the hope that we can solve this short of litigating it.
Thank you, Councilor Bradley. Other information exchange items, Councilor Daniele.
Just wanted to point out that the Active Living Committee is set to sunset at the end of this month. They're holding their last meeting on Thursday at 7:30. Feel free to join. And then most of the members are going to switch over into a Connect Freeport work group that will continue to meet around the same times that Active Living was. So it sounds pretty similar, but it is a transition. So that's where we're at.
Great. Thank you, Jake. Councillor Whitney.
Yes, so first, following what you were talking about, Councillor Egan, we will be now hosting office hours, Councillor Daniele, Councillor Pilch, and myself, and we will host those at 6 o'clock before every council meeting in person, starting at our very next council meeting. So we would love to hear from all of you. As we have found, it's the magic key is hearing the feedback from the community about what you like, what you don't like, what your new ideas are in regards to the downtown work. So you can find us there every time there's a council meeting. We will be there half an hour early to listen to your feedback. Also, I've told you about this before, but I'm very excited to announce that we have a tethered hot air balloon experience coming to Freeport this July 17th. It'll take place in the evening, and the exact time has not been narrowed down yet. But I would like to thank Casco Bay Ford. They are one of our sponsors. They will be bringing some of their coolest trucks to actually tether the balloon to the ground, which is helpful. And they've also financially contributed to this event. And I wrote one of my first grants to AARP, and out of 300 and so almost 4,000 applications, grant applications were received, and they did decide on 10, and we received one of those grants. The Hot Air Balloon Experience received a grant, and so we also have them to thank. So what ARP is going to do for us is they're going to allow the first hour of this hot air balloon experience to be dedicated to our precious elders that are in town. This hot air balloon is one of the only ones that's ADA compliant, so you can actually fit a wheelchair inside. So I'm very excited to have this collaborative night put together on July 17th. More information to come. Last night, your town manager, Mary Davis, president of FEDC, and myself were joined, had a meeting about New England Mountain Bike Association. That's who our group we met with. From the vision work, there has been, one of the things that's popped up is that there's interest in more mountain biking trails. And so we met with this group of amazing people to figure out if there might be some way to connect the trails that already exist, for example, as close as Bradbury Mountain into Freeport. And with the help of Google Earth, this great team and our town manager, we found that there is very much an easy transition to make that happen so that we could have some really amazing mountain biking trails at Hedgehog Mountain on the side of Hedgehog Mountain. So that's very exciting. And again, this is all coming out of, yes, Doug?
Make sure you run that by Complete Streets, please. That's what they're there for.
Wonderful. And also, in addition to Complete Streets, we are going to be talking with the Freeport Conservative group to get their feedback right from the beginning. They have a meeting on July 13th. And so we will present this new idea to them on the 13th to get their feedback. And then we now have a little presentation, Councillor Pilch, Mary Davis, and I, to update you on what's happening with the vision work and what's to come in the future. So Mary Davis, I'm going to let you go ahead and kick it off.
Peter, can you pull that up for me, please? Good evening. I'm not in a car tonight. This is much easier, I have to tell you.
I know, Mary, you were really juggling so much on such an important night. We had put in so much work, and Mary has to be in her car.
And I'm sorry, I also understand that I was giving my husband directions while he was driving at one point when I was live, so I apologize for that. Okay, so while Peter's getting the presentation up, I just want to say a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks since we brought the outcomes of the downtown visioning to the council. I want to remind folks that if you want to see the whole thing in gear, you can go look at the town council website where they have a recording of this, and it's at 1 hour and 52 minutes. So you can see the whole thing live. Or if you want to see an annotated version, you can go to freeportdowntown.me that has an annotated version that you could just read through. So we want everybody to be able to see it again. So the second thing that happened is we had both newspaper and media coverage. Thank you, Councilor Whitney. I hope you all saw it. We were on TV, we were in several newspapers, and it's all about the downtown visioning. It was nice coverage for us to be covered for something good happening in Freeport. We had 2 opportunities to get public input, one put on by principal and one put on by, thank you, Chair Egan and Councilor Whitney. I think that was helpful. And we've had lots of calls and emails of people saying, please, you know, I'd like to be involved, or I have some feedback for you. And of course, this team has been working on what the outcomes were and, you know, how to move them forward. So next slide, please, Peter. As a reminder to folks who might not have seen this before, these were the goals when we started out with this downtown visioning project. And I think you're going to see that we're achieving those goals really nicely as I show you what the outcomes are. It was all about community consensus, making sure that we had a good public process, that it was an actionable plan that we could use, that would help us to adapt to the future with lots of community and stewardship. And I think, again, you're going to see a lot of that as we show you the outcomes. Next slide, please. So remember in the what is a downtown plan, this was the framework to guide our future decision making based upon what the community values and feedback was all about. We are now ending with early action items from the phase 1, from feedback in our trial projects to trial out if we like what we think we wanted. Phase 2 and phase 3 are yet to be funded. So I'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about the funding for phase 2. Phase 2 is about taking all those ideas and turning them into postcards. And phase 3 is a full plan. Go to the next slide, please. You know, because we know that a vibrant downtown is going to be what we all want. It's what the residents want, it's what our visitors want, and it's also what our businesses want. So that's why we're driving on all this. So what were the outcomes of phase 1? Lots and lots and lots of community feedback. Thank you, Chair Egan. You talked about how much we got. There was a lot. And when principal was actually reading through all the comments, Logan called me one night and she said, have you ever looked at 2,200 surveys that were all handwritten? And she read them all, as did Russ. So there was lots and lots of feedback that we received, which was wonderful. So that data was compiled into the graphs that we saw 2 weeks ago. From that came these 13 potential early action projects, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But remember, what these are intended to do is we said we wanted certain things in downtown, and these early action projects, a way for us to trial them, to test them out this summer, to see if we like what we said we want. So that's what these early action projects are all about. There was lots of community engagement, involvement, so much. It was just wonderful to see, between town walks, between presentations, having community feedback. We had, you know, Vondella Curtis at our town walk. We had Linda Bean in our town walk. We just had a lot of engagement of wonderful folks in this. And I think the last thing that was an amazing outcome of phase 1, and I can speak for me, but it really developed a lot of us, team understanding and competency about how to think about the downtown, about how to look at opportunities and options, and about how to include the community in getting feedback that's so important for us to be doing the right things. So we've learned so much. So I think from this overall, we feel like phase 1 was a very high value added process and project for all of us. So next slide. So one of the outcomes of this, again, was this values that we showed last time. And the feedback of the community, of course, led to these values, which is the framework to help us think about where do we go from here and what are the right projects for us to do. We've had a little bit of feedback on this. You'll see it still as a draft. For instance, we did this presentation to a group of, I think it was 9 LO Bean executives about a week ago. And one of the comments that they had is, can we turn that into a New England year-round village center to encourage that people see us as a year-round opportunity? So some of these values may change a slight bit, but this is what the collective of folks said. And I think if you look at those, we'll say, these are the things that are going to help to vision our projects going forward. So next, please. So One thing, as we started to look at the values, that we realized is there are events and things that are already going on in Freeport that absolutely align with the values and the direction that we're going in. And we don't want to lose sight of all the great happenings that are already occurring and the people who are making them happen. If you look at what Visit Freeport is doing, what LL Bean is doing, what Wolf Neck, what Cadenza, the Freeport Historical Society, ACAF, we have all these wonderful events that are already going on that are absolutely the right thing, aligned with those values. Go to the next slide, please. In addition to that, there's a lot of initiatives that are happening in downtown. Again, you see ACAF, you see the Historical Society. We stopped by there the other day to look at the parklet, and Jim Cram came out and showed us all the amazing things that they're doing with the Historical Society and how we pull that into the parklets and things that we do. Expanded seating. The storefronts are, again, more of them are being filled. We have a craftsman going into one of them on Main Street. Thank you, Councilor Whitney. So there are so many things that are going on now, again, that completely align with those values that folks said they wanted. And I think it's important for us to continue to support them. One of the emails that I sent in to some of the counselors this afternoon was an email that came out from Visit Freeport that is all around how they're advertising about Freeport. And it is so aligned with showing everything that Freeport has to offer, and such a good vision and image of us in so many different kinds of circulations, in Down East, in Maine Magazine, and Visit Freeport's just doing a wonderful job for us. So again, there's a lot of current initiatives that are happening in the downtown area. Go to the next slide, please. So what is this early action plan all about? Remember that these are kind of short-term tactical projects that we think we can do pretty easily that are going to trial if we really like what we thought we wanted, like more places to sit, parklets, places for the kids to be, more community involvement in downtown, some streets that are easier to cross. So from this early action plan came 13 projects from principals, as Chair Egan said, plus there's like 6 or 7 that have come from residents. So it's a growing list of wonderful projects. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of excitement. And so I'm going to now turn it over to Councilors Pilch and Whitney to talk about the projects, our priorities, and kind of the way in which this group has been thinking about long-term value, cost, et cetera. So Councilors Pilch, Whitney?
Can you go one more slide in, and I will, there's a lot here, and don't worry if you can't read it all. This is a list of all 13 projects that came out of the early action plan report we got from principal, and then we added a few more onto the end because we got our creative juices flowing. I had offered to catalog the projects, and I don't want to say rank them in a way that spits out an answer that says this is the right project and this is the wrong project, but to give us a framework around which we could talk about the projects. So what you're looking at here is each project is evaluated in terms of the impact it's going to have, how easy it's going to be to get done, and some idea of relative cost. So the numbers aren't exact. They're not meant to be budgetary numbers. They're meant to be relative numbers. So you can think of them as small, medium, and high budgets. And then go to the next page. And what happens is when you graph these projects, it looks like this. And along the left-right axis, along the bottom, is the impact. So things closer to the right have a higher long-term impact. Things closer to the left don't have as much of an impact long-term. And then top to bottom, things near the top are easier to get done. Things near the bottom are hard to get done. So good projects would be things that are over to the right that have a good impact, and they're near the top. They're easier to get done. So we're looking for things near the top right quadrant. And if we see things in the bottom left quadrant, we should sort of steer clear of those. They don't have a lot of impact and they're really hard to get done. And then the size of the bubble indicates the cost of the project. So small bubbles are cheaper, large bubbles are more expensive. So this gives us a framework. And when you look at the big sort of medium-sized orange dot that's about 7 over to the right and 7 up from the bottom, that is the Bow Street Courtyard, which Councilor Whitney will talk a bit about. And then the smaller little orange dot that's 8 over and 6 up, is Food Truck Fridays. So that's, has a good impact, relatively cheap and relatively easy to get done. So this just gives us a framework as new projects come in, we can kind of think about them using this framework. This is not something where you put data in and it spits out an answer that tells you what project to do, what not to do. It's just some guidance. So with that, I think Councillor Whitney is going to talk about the projects that we selected to kind of really push forward on in the short term.
Yes,
And
thank you.
excuse me, one thing, Dan, I just wanted to say on this chart, we have not included the 6 additional projects that came from the community. They are not on this chart yet. They will be on this chart. We just didn't have the data and costing and whatever to get them on there, but thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I just think that Dan's work is so important because it really helps to, and it's just an illustration that makes it so easy for us to grasp these different projects, why we have these different projects, and how we're going to go about getting this moving. And so we had a meeting just a couple days ago. Mary and I met with Chair Egan and with Caroline Pelletier to say, what are the next steps to actually pulling this stuff off? We have all these great ideas, the 13 plus the 6 others the communities come up with. So how do we unfold these? Our challenge by the principal group was to have a few of these going by July 1st. And so what we did was what we just started to do is decide which ones we're going to unfold first based on the amount of community input that we've received. And so one of those that we'd like to pull off before July 1st is a parklet on North Main Street. This is very little cost and very high impact. And this is easy to pull off because it's in plain sight. So our residents and our visitors are quickly going to realize that this work that we're doing, this vision work that we're doing, is definitely not something that's pretty and just sitting on a shelf. This also rose to the top because the entire North Main Street block owners, as well as the Complete Streets Committee, came forward to express their support for this project. That's community. We could succeed on that alone. The second project that's come to be something that we feel like we can pull off quickly, and again, is extremely low cost, would be the idea of painted sidewalks. We have identified 3 different spots in downtown that we feel that these could take place right away. And unfortunately, that would mean avoiding Route 1 Main Street, because the offside streets, we are able to do what we want with the town's permission, and we don't have to wait for approval from DOT. And so Maura Pillsbury, who's on our school board, contacted us, and she thought it would be a great idea to have a rainbow sidewalk in recognition of Pride Month. And so we would like to have that pulled off. And that would be located right in front of Brickyard Hollow, Mexicali Blues, that sidewalk right there. We feel like it's got great visibility. And I think Maura's ready to bring her paintbrush and help out. Also, as Chair Egan mentioned, we've got a great baseball team right now and a great school system. And so we thought it would be great to recognize our school system and paint one of the sidewalks near Holbrook Street with the maroon and white local colors for the school. And then we thought we'd play with the third sidewalk, which is the near Mill Street, and we thought we could do that one in historical coastal colors. Caroline is going to get a cost estimate from Earl, and then Mary and I will search to find a company that will be able to sponsor the paint for this project. Although it's low cost, we'd like to keep it no cost for the town. The third idea is very sweet. We have a local Girl Scouts group that has reached out to us, and they were hoping to find a way to be involved, and they wanted to bring their paintbrushes. And so there's been an area of sidewalk identified, and the Girl Scouts are currently working on coming up with an idea that they will submit to the town for our sign off. It's also been suggested that at the end of Nathan Nye, that street actually be blocked off to create a festive parklet in that vicinity. And our Keith McBride is actually doing some of the leadership on that one. Again, extremely low cost, and it really fits in well with some of the other parklets that we're trying to create, which would be idea number 5.
Councilor Whitney, could you please just remind everybody where Nathan Nye Street is? We may not all know.
Absolutely. So Nathan, I didn't certainly know these streets very well until I started doing this work, but Nathan Nye is right next to Starbucks. And so the last idea is the parklet, is the idea of a park between, it's a grassy area between Brickyard Hollow and Mexicali Blues. And there was a rendering, a beautiful rendering by Principal Group that showed people sitting in the park, food trucks, musicians, you know, artists, and it's amazing and it's so great. But in order to do that, that is not our land. That's not town-owned property. And so we have formed a relationship with the landowner, and he has allowed us to actually put on a couple of concerts already. And so we'd like to continue that relationship with that landowner who has been wonderful to us, so that we can get a few other opportunities for our local school musicians and others to play with that area. And what's really made it feel like a park to me when those events have taken place is that LL Bean has generously dropped off a lot of furniture so that people can sit and stay longer and really enjoy that experience. And the other place that LL Bean has generously brought furniture for us to use in the community and that visitors to use is the property that's behind Starbucks. What's really special about that area that the town owns, it's just a small little portion of property that's next to the Historical Society behind LL Bean and Starbucks. It's just such an unused piece of property that's now being used. There are so many times when I drive by that and I see high school kids sitting there, or I see, you know, folks from the little food cart that's there. And that little food cart has been there for 30 years. And he is so excited that LL Bean, he feels like, is helping out his business. He said to me the other day, they even brought me down a table. So I just feel like that community building that has happened is such a huge part of the success of this program. So I'm really excited to see these things kind of come to light and for you guys to see this unfolding and for us to move forward.
So again, thank you. You'll continue to hear from us. Welcome, Councillor Daniele. We're happy to have you as a participant. But of course, this group is going to continue to drive forward. We have a lot to do. We have a lot of community members who want to get this done. It is summertime, and you know, we know that people will take vacations, but we are very excited. We know that this is good economic development. We know that this will be what Freeport needs to help keep it the viable, wonderful downtown we want. So.
And these 5 that I've mentioned tonight are just 5 that I hope that you're going to see unfold very quickly. But it's not that the other items that Principal suggested aren't being worked on, and they are. Like, for example, the pop-up skate park has a committee already formed. They're working on it and they're meeting next week. So these other ideas are being worked on, but they're just, you might not see them in front of your eyes by July.
That's correct. And as we continue to talk with folks, it's wonderful that this presentation, the presentation that was done 2 weeks ago, is causing people to come forward and say, hey, you know, I'd love to have a trolley bus in downtown Freeport. I'd love to have them be able to get to other places. I'd love to have it be bikeable. So we just have, again, this is helping to build consensus around where we're going. So thank you so much for allowing us the time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mary, for all your energy putting in to all of these steps. And just to remind folks, as well as the rest of the council, in terms of mechanics of how the communication works, there is a significant larger group of business owners, residents, committee members from the general public who have been participating largely online through Zoom for planning sessions throughout the past several months. And to not lose access to that group, we have to, because of public meeting laws about counselors, any more than 2 gathered at a particular meeting, that meeting becomes a public meeting and has to be noticed and recorded. We're trying to create a sort of a parallel work group, which is the group that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, of Councillor Whitney, Councillor Pilch, and Councillor Daniele being the conduit for the general public to find out what's happening with various activities. And they're welcome to go to these other meetings, but we didn't want to lose the opportunity to continue with the momentum of our constituents from the community, business owners and residents and enthusiasts in the community. So in order to keep that activity going through virtual and in-person meetings, without it having to get burdened with all of the notice requirements, we've created an ad hoc working committee of the of the council of those 3 members that I just mentioned. So that's the reason for a little bit of separation and structure, is just so that we can keep communication as open and transparent as possible, while maintaining as much momentum as we can behind this really important effort. So thank you all of you for participating in that. It's great to see this. And as I said last meeting, I can't wait to get my hands on a paint roller and start painting some of these sidewalks. I'm looking forward to that. Any other information exchange before we move
Questions?
on? Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Bradley.
Yeah, I think this is great. I mean, you can sense the momentum building, right? But it is still not, and I've asked this question a couple times before, and please, I don't think I'm stupid, but I don't get it quite yet. So you've taken the principal group, 13 projects, and you haven't prioritized them so much as you've encouraged several of them to occur so that you'll get them done early, and that makes a lot of sense. There are, and Dan's got a framework to sort of to help prioritize, or at least appreciate both the difficulty and the expense of different projects. There are 6 projects that are coming into the hopper, if that's the way to say it, from the community, and there are a number of people who have other ideas, and I assume that they'll just go into the 3-person hopper. Is that the first? That's my first question. If someone comes to you as a counselor, or it's you yourself that has an idea, throw it into the hopper of Dan, Jake, and Tawny. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then my question is, what do they do with it? You know, are they the people who decide whether it can be done? Are they the people who decide that it will get money? Are they the people who say, yes, you can do that, or you can't? What's the next stage once something goes into a hopper? How does it go from going into the hopper to becoming a painted sidewalk or a parklet or something else? Dan?
I'll offer an opinion on that. It's really my personal opinion, which is that I don't believe this group acts as a bottleneck or an arbiter of anything. It's more, if there's a way we can encourage or unblock or remove some barriers, we're happy to do it. If somebody has an idea and approaches you and you want to go forward and do it, sure, we're never going to stop anything from happening. I think our role is just to, add fuel to the fire to anybody who brings a project that needs a little extra help to get it done. But I don't view us standing in the way of any project or stopping any project or saying no to any project, ever.
An example of that was when Maura Pillsbury emailed all of us with a new idea, which was the painted sidewalk, and we just are able to let's make that happen.
Okay, so there's a good example. There's one that you guys picked and you said, that's a good one. Let's go forward with it. Let's help make it happen. When someone comes forward with an idea that isn't in the principal group hopper, and you can't find any, you're certainly not going to raise any barriers, I understand it. How will you help things like that happen? What will be your standards or your process for deciding which things does the town working group get behind so it has both the credibility and the best chance of success?
Well, I don't think we've ever denied or said this isn't a great idea to anything that's come our way. And one of the other ways that I think we can help really get some momentum and support around some ideas that are suggested to any of us is, one way we could do it is to take it to the street gang and help really give it some, if it needs extra support from the community, we can get it done through there. But I mean, also just giving, you've had some ideas, Councilor Bradley, that I feel like you and I have figured out, like, that should go to the street gang. Let's wait on this one, and just talking it through.
Right. We also believe that there are hurdles that most of these project drivers could become really frustrated with, and we don't want them to be frustrated with them. So for instance, things like, can we do this on streets? Or we have a skate park group who's come together and they said, we want a in-town outside skate park. So our role is to sort of help remove barriers, not say yes or no, but if this is something that the community wants and it fits with those values, how can we help them navigate and frame the project so that it's the right project. You know, it's getting Peter involved, it's getting Caroline involved, it's getting the council involved if it requires money. So it's kind of helping steward projects
Yes,
into
they come to
place.
life, right.
Yeah.
And Caroline, I mean, and Peter have been so wonderful at making that happen. Just as I had said when I started talking, it's like, okay, we've got all these great ideas. How do we bring them to life?
Right.
And a lot of the times, as Caroline, I can see your little smile. It's difficult.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Easy.
and you have to stay on them, and we don't want to exhaust our residents and our volunteers. And so really, I feel like this team is to make that process easier so that these projects, whatever ideas they are, can come to life, because this is what all we're doing is we're trying things. If somebody says they want a cotton candy vendor downtown, then let's try it. It might be the next best thing.
Okay, thanks.
I really like
Councilor
that.
Riley?
I had thrown out the idea to bring back the farmer's market, and I haven't seen any follow-up with that. Number one, I also threw out the idea of doing a geocaching around merchants so that people would visit more stores than what they anticipated, with a gift at the end if they complete a certain quantity of those. I haven't heard anything on that.
I think what I might respond to on some of the projects is we're also looking for folks who want to steward it and put it into place. You know I have limited resources and I can't champion 15 projects, but 15 people can champion 15 projects. So I think we're also looking at the community members, like the person who came forward with, whether it's Ed with a trolley or Willow with a skate park. You know, if you can drive this project, hey, we'll help you to remove the barriers and get it out of the way.
But
So
where we had the farmer's market in, that's the same group of people that would continue on, wouldn't it be?
Councilor Riley, your idea about the farmers market has been heard by our new residents that are taking over Bartow Library, who are very supportive of it. They don't get their key until tomorrow, and the lease is ready to go, guys. So that's happening. But I did extend that idea of yours, and they were very supportive of it, and they felt like they could help maybe steward that to reality.
right. You also have Eric from the Freeport Historical Society who has talked about that. So I think it's a matter of kind of evolution. I think there'll be projects that come out that people will champion. So again, if we find a champion to help get it done, we'll try to put it in that hopper list.
Doug, I'm happy to help work with you on the farmer's market thing, because I had the same experience last week that Portland, Cumberland, Falmouth, Yarmouth, Brunswick all have farmers markets and we don't. So that kind of, got me thinking. And I know that MOFCA is going to do stuff in the Bartow Library. There's other stuff being talked about too, as far as an indoor farmers market. So yeah, Doug, if you want to work on that with me, I'm more than happy to do it. I think we should have one. So happy to make it happen.
Thank you.
Go team.
Right, lively conversation. Let's move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the town manager's report. Peter?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I might have a bunch of old news to report here, but I'll do it anyways. The MOFCA, we've been finished, or at least nearly finished negotiations. They've reviewed initial draft of the lease that we prepared, and we're talking about any final revisions tomorrow. We're hoping that the ready for signature and key passing, as Councilor Whitney just mentioned. So they're pretty excited to go into the space, and we're working with them. They've been great so far, so we're excited about that. I do want to add just a really brief comment that I think carries over from the previous discussion. We did reach out to MDOT regarding some of the projects in the downtown vision report that were just being discussed, that the report that was just being discussed, sorry, and the response that MDOT gave us. I think I've talked to a few individual councilors about this, but definitely not the whole council. Anything that's on the MDOT network, which is essentially state-owned roads, their expectation is that the town would do the engineering and certify that the project is safe. It meets the state guidelines and standards. So, we have the ability to do that. Our engineer can do that. I think as we were just discussing, or as the council was just discussing, we can't do 15 projects, but a priority list like the ones that were mentioned. Adam's in the audience, and we talked a little bit with him today about might get a couple priority projects for doing within the state right of way. We can do that in-house. They were very, just to throw that out, there, they were very insistent that if any lanes come or go, that it includes a full regional traffic survey. So that's like when you get the traffic counters out and you have a traffic engineer calculate if a lane removal is going to make a traffic backup, difference during peak traffic flow or something like that. So I would say anything that has lane addition or removal, specifically like the Bow Street corner, as it was presented with the turn lane, going one of the turn lanes going away, that's going to be a big lift. That'll be probably one of the bigger ones. I think that might have been reflected in some of the calculations that the group just presented. So thanks for that. But just kind of giving you that feedback, so you all have it when there's, when we prioritize the projects, we can get engineering staff involved. We can easily accomplish a few of these projects, and anything that's on a local road will have little to no scrutiny from the state, that we will just need to make sure it's safe from a staff and an engineering perspective. So I hope that's consistent with what the group that was the working group felt in the communications we've had. So just throwing that out there for everyone to hear. Last but not least, this has been reported as well, but for the public, we continue to get a lot of questions about what happened at Town Hall last week, which was a pretty serious matter with a good result, or as good as you could have hoped in the scenario. There was what has been, likely, I would say a more than likely confirmed as a cyber attack attempt on the town, our network infrastructure. I would probably describe that as partially successful. And what I mean by that is it was an attempted ransomware attack that was not fully successful. Got to give a lot of credit to our IT company and their monitoring that detected the attack immediately. And they were able to stop pretty much all the damage before it occurred and limit the impact on the town's network by quarantining things immediately and taking everything offline. The outage that you and everyone in town experienced over the past week, meaning that we had no internet, we had no phones at any of the town facilities, was self-imposed by our network team. They took everything offline and we kept it off while they did a thorough assessment of our network to make sure there weren't any lingering effects or any other malware on there that we weren't aware of. The good news that we have is that there is no, at this point in time, it does not look like there was data theft from the network. We cannot say that 100% certainty at this point in time, but that's what we've been getting a lot of questions on. So I do want to put that out there. That means data for the public or for employees who are obviously concerned about, financial data and things like that. We have hired a full, or our IT company has brought in, I should say, a data forensics specialist that is reviewing the entire scenario to confirm to the best of anyone's ability whether or not there are issues that can be detected on the network that had happened previous to the attack in terms of data theft. We are required to notify under state law. There's a notice requirement if that is determined to be the case. It is not at this time believed to have happened, but that's why we're being thorough about that. I think most organizations, when something like this happens, have to have a high, as good of a level of certainty as they can to determine whether or not they need to do any notifications to people about a potential data breach. So that's what's ongoing right now. Hope to have more information, a full good report to the council in 2-3 weeks when we meet again from our IT specialist and that IT vendor and that data security specialist. So I have to give huge shout out to our staff who dealt with this scenario, everybody who was inconvenienced and put out. They did a great job by still having some operational ability last week. Huge thank you to the customers that we've had at all the town facilities. We only, I think, had 1 or 2 out of hundreds of people through our doors, people that were really angry about it. Everybody else was sympathetic and the nicest we could ever expect. So thank you, and we apologize for all the inconvenience, any of the inconvenience, and things are looking up right now. Not 100%, happy about the results, you know, that the fact that it happened, but very happy about the way that it was handled and the way everyone responded.
Peter, I think I'll just add that we under recommendation and suggestion from our IT support company, we did notify the cyber crimes unit at the state. Chief Goodman coordinated that conversation. So we did involve law enforcement in notification of this. And at this point, I don't think they're planning on any response back to us, primarily because we were so successful in capturing this breach so quickly that we didn't lose any data. We didn't lose any public data.
Yeah, my understanding is that the state and federal law enforcement likes to get involved when there are confirmed data breaches and, you know, large ransoms and things like that, but that they are regularly dealing with much more significant events than this, you know, on a daily basis, both in Maine and especially regionally in the Northeast region. So this seems big to us, but it doesn't blip the radar in terms of what crimes are actually happening that people are getting hit by. So,
Councilor Bradley?
Yeah, in some of the communications that I had during this week, I learned that the early detection was the result of some very astute planning on part of staff. I wonder, Peter, if you could talk about that a little bit, because it made me feel good.
yeah, it's an optional monitoring tool software that we had that both our IT company and our finance director basically harassed us for probably a year, saying we need to get, and I think we put it online within the past year as kind of some of these attacks became more commonplace. And, you know, myself thinking like, yeah, that's not anything we ever have to worry about. Sure enough, it, you know, I wouldn't say it was 100% effective, but as we've learned after the fact, a lot of the times people become aware of these attacks when all of a sudden their computers stop working, or when they get an email from, you know, essentially a hacker criminal syndicate saying, we have 400 gigs of your personnel data. We'd like $100,000 if you want it back. So it's a really good feeling it's scary as anything when they tell you that it's in the middle of happening, but good to know that somebody is watching it. And the IT company deserves a lot of credit for that. We are looking
just
at,
to be clear, that did not happen with us. We did not have a ransom proposed to us where there was a capture of data and we were threatened with that. So those are possibilities, but I just want to make it clear in case anybody didn't catch that. That did not happen here.
That's correct. Every time I say ransom, I should say two things. We did not pay a ransom, and there was not personal data stolen. There was a partial encryption of some of our files that was completely restorable from a backup, you know, within less than a day. And there was a ransom that was posted for release of those encryption files, but obviously that wasn't something that we were going to pay. So because we had access to the full backups. So I don't want to say everything is great and we're out of the woods because things can develop. But we're going to continue just, you know, we'll take another look at this probably hard when when the data forensics report comes back to make sure that everything that I'm saying right now is an accurate statement. You know, that there weren't any significant changes from what we were told initially.
So thank you, Jessica, for insisting on the protection.
And we're going to be looking, you know, we're going to be getting some recommendations about additional security products and looking at those hard to see if there's any gaps in, you know, there's one thing I should say is even the IT security professionals that we were working with throughout this incident would tell us that there's no way to perfectly secure your systems or your network. But, you know, there are the big gaps that you can fill in, and it's a cost analysis up to that point. So I think we've got some of the big gaps filled. Now it's a question of looking at the medium and small gaps to see, you know, what the actual risk is, and maybe get some additional monitoring products and some additional safety services. But, you know, we had that baseline, which really helped us in this case. And we didn't end up like some of the cases that have been reported on recently in municipalities. So really happy about that.
Thank you, Peter. I know that that whole incident, you know, took twice as many hours as even were available from you last week. So I appreciate your diligence to keep other things going while you were dealing with that. As good, as you said, a good a resolution as we could expect from that. Okay, any other questions for the manager? Our next item on the agenda is public comment period. This is a chance in the agenda for the public to address the council, ask questions, make comments, make suggestions on items that are not on our agenda. And so if you are here to have a comment about our adopting the budget for next fiscal year, or to ask about the 2 public hearings that we are going to set for July 6th, those are coming up. Otherwise, this is a chance for members of the public to address the council on non-agenda items. And the way that you access the microphone, so to speak, is to use the raise hand feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen. And from the list of people participating, we can see that raised hand and we'll move you over. And we have one such hand raised now, Susanna Hancock. Peter, could you please move Susanna over to the live section?
She's ready to go. Go ahead, Susanna. How are you?
Go ahead, Susanna.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. So yes, as was just said, Susanna Hancock, Flying Point Road. And I'm here tonight on behalf of the Freeport Sustainable Advisory Board. And we are asking the town, so town council, to endorse the EICDA Act, which is the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. And we did send a message to several of you earlier. So this is probably repeat knowledge for some or all of you. But this is a bipartisan bill in the US Congress right now that's currently co-sponsored by Shelley Pingree among 67 other Congress, House reps and Senate. And so this bill basically implements an incremental carbon tax on polluters and spurs innovation through market-based strategies to move to more sustainable energies, while also paying a dividend to all American residents, which can total a few $1,000s for a family of 4. So money that can be used for personal clean energy, environmental purposes, or as sees fit. So currently this bill is the largest individual piece of legislation that would drop our levels of emissions as quickly as possible. And for those of you who know that I do international climate work in my day life, we have one tool that we use called En-ROADS, which is a software developed by Climate Interactive Antenna Systems, MIT Sloan. It's used and its predecessors in 88 different countries right now, US Congress, UN Secretary General, Hewitt Foundation, et cetera. It's helped policies under UN climate ministerial, such as Paris Accords and earlier protocols. And this is a software that I use, and I'm delighted to share with you at some point, what kind of impact this bill in particular would have, especially in comparison with other forms of legislation or climate action. And so the FSAB is asking for your endorsement because both of our senators, Senator King and Collins, who have stated that this is something that they support personally, but will endorse it nationally if there's enough support from towns in the state. And we are the only state right now with both senators in the Climate Solutions Caucus. And as this is a bipartisan bill with both Democratic and Republican support, I would like to have it get supported by our senators. So from the perspective of Freeport, endorsing this doesn't have direct implications. It simply tells our congressional leadership that Freeport is in support of climate action. And indeed, it doesn't block the town from taking any actions in any direction in the future. So lastly, I'll just end by saying that a bunch of towns throughout Maine have endorsed this bill, including neighbors of ours, such as Portland earlier this month, Brunswick, Cape, Elizabeth, Harpswell, South Portland, Aroostook, et cetera. And then further throughout the state, ranging from Vinyl Haven, Bangor to Farmington. So that's it, but the FSAB is asking that you take this action, and we would love to follow up with you. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Susanna. And I apologize that I was not able to get back with you because I saw your email last week, and then we lost everything when our systems went down, and I don't have your email elsewhere except on my town account, which I couldn't access. So I apologize for not getting back with you. I'd like to put my individual support behind this action, but we're going to need, I think, just a little bit organization around it. If there was a possibility that either you or the FSAB could draft some language that we could look at and possibly circulate that between now and our next meeting, then we could have a little bit of conversation and then actually endorse a specific statement. If I could ask if that's possible. I don't know what the time frame is for getting these list of endorsements to our congressional delegation, but that would help, I think, move it along through here, since we're just, you know, I think as a chair, before I ask the rest of the council to endorse anything, I think we should see it in writing so we all agree on the language. So if possible, we could get a look at that, and then we could circulate it between now and our next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I sent to you and so several others about, you know, a website that really goes into the how everything works. So I can certainly share that with everybody and put in some stuff in language as well. So I can send that around. So thank you
Great.
very much.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Appreciate your efforts on that committee too. It's great to have an asset like you working in our community.
It's fun. Thank you.
Okay, so other members of the public who wish to participate in our council meeting, use the raise hand feature. I don't see any phone numbers, so the *6 on your phone doesn't apply tonight, but if you are interested in addressing the council, this would be the time. And we will then move you over to the live portion of the meeting and you can participate in a conversation. I'm always hesitant to sort of cut off the public participation segment here before somebody has a chance to raise their hand, just to make sure we don't have someone who's thinking about it and not sure and maybe a little shy, and just want to give chance to anybody who's here as an attendee this evening who would like to address the council. This is the time for public participation on non-agenda items. Okay, I don't see any other hands up. We have a couple of other opportunities potentially later on in this evening where the public can participate in a conversation, but this is the primary one this evening. So I think we'll go ahead and close the public comment period and continue on through our agenda. The big topic this evening is adopting our town budget for the next coming fiscal year, which starts in just a few weeks on July 1. The next item of business on our agenda is the 7th order, which is the consent agenda. We have on the consent agenda this evening the nomination of Jessica Malloy to endorse for the Eco-Maine Board alternate, as well as a number of victular licenses, a list of a number of local businesses which are provided on that consent agenda. Is there any reason to take any of those items off of the consent agenda for further discussion at the council? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and be it ordered that the June 15th, 2021 consent agenda be adopted.
Second.
So we have it moved and seconded. Last chance. Any reason to take those off? I don't see any hands going up, so we'll take a vote on adopting the consent agenda. Councilor Riley?
Yes.
Councilor Pilch?
Yes.
Councilor Bradley? Councilor Daniele?
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence?
Yes.
Councilor Whitney?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, consent agenda is adopted. Our next item is item number 105-21. For the record, that was the consent agenda was item number 104-21. Our next item is 105-21 to consider action relative to setting a public hearing for special amusement permits. Councilor Daniele, could you please read the be it ordered and the further ordered?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Be it ordered that a public hearing be set for July 6, 2021 at the Town Council meeting that starts at 6:30 p.m. at Freeport Town Hall and virtually via Zoom technology to discuss special amusement permit renewals. Be it further ordered that copies be distributed equally between the town clerk's office, the town manager's office, and the Freeport Community Library for inspection by citizens during normal business hours, and the notice be placed on Freeport's local cable channel 3 and the town's website.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Special amusement permit. I don't see a specific item in our package, Peter. This is related to.
Yep. I was just about to raise that point. There's not backup, and also I just checked on on the server for this meeting, and everything's in there except for there's not any backup for item 105-21. So I don't have a document listing the specific items. So I'm actually trying to get our town clerk, Jessica and I were just looking remotely through the records to see what we could find, but I don't actually have a document here for that. So I'm not sure if it's in error. We had a couple of glitches doing the agenda at the end of last week, as you can
Yeah.
imagine, without
Yeah.
having access to Word. So the one after is absolutely correct for Mass Landing Brewing Company, but do we want to maybe
Do we have to identify the item in order to set the public hearing? Because I think we could go ahead and set the public hearing for special amusement permit, but
I would say that unless I tell you otherwise, it is for all of the special amusement permit renewals
yeah.
that are due. I don't know if that's 7 or 27 or 3. Unfortunately.
Yeah, okay. Well, without specifying, then we probably should not take action on that unless we.
I've got, hold on a second. We just got a list. We have a list of expirations in July. No, but these are good until July 2022.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll table this item.
Can we table it, and I will try to find the answer before the end of the meeting. And that way, if it's not there, then we'll just have to deal with it. I'll have to let them know. I mean, obviously, we're not going to enforce somebody's special amusements if they're out of compliance, and it's because of us. So.
Okay, Councilor Daniele, could you please amend your be it ordered to table this item for later in the agenda?
I amend to table this item until later in the agenda.
I amend my second.
All right, we'll vote on tabling. Councilor Riley,
Yes.
Councilor Pilch,
Yes.
Councilor Bradley,
Yes.
Councilor Daniele,
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence,
Yes.
Councilor Whitney.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Let's hopefully we get that list so that we can actually set the public hearing a little bit later with some detail. Our next item is number 106-21 to consider action relative to setting a public hearing for a new liquor license for a new brewery in town. Councilor Pilch, could you please read the be it ordered and the further ordered?
Be it ordered that a public hearing be set for July 6th, 2021 at the town council meeting that starts at 6:30 at Freeport Town Hall. And maybe virtually via Zoom technology,
Yeah, we're gonna do both.
regarding a new liquor license from Mass Landing Brewing Company located at 200 Lower Main Street. Be it further ordered that copies be distributed equally between the town clerk's office, the town manager's office, and the Freeport Community Library for inspection by citizens during normal business hours, and the notice be placed on Freeport's local cable channel 3 in the town's website.
Second.
Okay, so we are setting a public hearing for a new liquor license for Mass Landing Brewing. We're not having a discussion on that this evening, but just so that we know what we're doing with this public hearing at the July 6th, Mass Landing Brewing is a new business moving to the south end of Main Street in downtown Freeport.
Returning the business to Freeport.
Returning business, right, from a long time ago. So we're going to just set the public hearing tonight for consideration of this new liquor license. We'll take the vote. Councilor Riley,
Yes.
Councilor Pilch,
Yes.
Councilor Bradley, Councilor Daniele,
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence,
Yes.
Councilor Whitney,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So we have a liquor license public hearing for Mass Landing Brewing on July 6th, our next meeting. Our next item is item number 107-21 to consider action relative to the write-off of some personal property tax interest. Councilor Whitney, could you please read the be it ordered and the first, and yes, sorry, be it ordered.
Be it ordered that the town manager and treasurer be authorized to write off the following interest on personal property taxes.
Second.
All right, so Jessica, do you want to explain what we're doing here? This is a relatively common thing that we do each year where we're choosing not to pursue this particular element of interest.
Yeah, so this is a personal property tax collection effort. We have been working with this local business for at least 6 years since I've been here. And they have, for the most part, followed their payment arrangement and have been working diligently to bring this assessed tax down. And in combination, there were a couple things in combination. There was some assessments that should have been, had the proper paperwork been filed, the assessments really should not have been as high as they were for some of those years. Compile that with, high interest rates occurring on these taxes during that time. And so this business has been struggling to get caught up because of the amount of back interest that is being incurred on these taxes. So as part of our policy, if there's, based on the amount due to be collected, if it's been on the books for more than 3 years, we can have a discussion at the council level to see if it can be written off. And in the case of this vendor, I'm asking to write off approximately $2,069.68 in interest. They have paid well over, in the 6 years that I've been collecting with them, they've paid well over $13,000. And they asked if they could do a large or a significant one-time payment to pay off what was still due on a principal basis, a principal amount due for taxes, and forgive the remaining interest on the last few years of personal property tax owed. So preliminarily, the town accepted a $3,500 payment, which paid off the tax years 20, bear with me one second, paid off the tax years from 2013 through 2016. And in addition to that, they wrote a second check, so above and beyond that $3,500, that paid off the 19, 20, and 21 taxes in full. So this is just asking for the interest to be written off that was allocated or incurred during that 2013 to 2016 tax period. And it would be my recommendation to do so. That, like I said, they've been paying a ton of interest. When I first started working with them, they owed all the way back to, I believe it was 2006. So, through an honest payment arrangement that we created 6 years ago, they've paid interest on taxes since 2006 to now. And we're struggling with the nature of their business to continue to make those payments, and it was prohibitive because of the amount of interest that had been accrued during all of this time. So again, unless you have further questions for me, that would be my recommendation, to forgive the interest for those 4 tax years, and know that even during the 2013 tax year, they have, up to now, they have paid interest on that tax year as well. But the $3,500 payment that they made is paying off the principal amounts for those 4 years and asking for the forgiveness of just the interest in those 4 years. They were not asking for interest to be forgiven on the 2019, 20, or 21 years. There is a gap in their tax years. If you've been listening to the years that I've given you, I gave you through 2016 that they're asking to be forgiven. There were 2 tax years, 2017 and 2018, where the proper paperwork was filed, and based on the equipment that they had or had been relieved of, they actually did not have personal property tax owed in those 2 years based on those changes. So they were being taxed on equipment that they no longer had, but didn't really understand at the time that the paperwork needed to be filed to remove it. So, but at that point, it became too late to offer an abatement because they waited too long to cut. So it's a whole string of errors that went on. I could fill your night with it all. But the end result is, based on the efforts that both them and the town have put forth, I'm asking for that interest to be forgiven so that we can move forward.
Any questions for the finance director? Council Pilch?
One question is not related to this specific case, but on the agenda, it says these years are beyond the town's ability to pursue collection. Does that mean that anybody from 2016 before we can't go after for interest?
Personal property tax collection is different than property taxes. So personal property tax has to be collected through court, whereas property tax, there's a lien process that we always are guaranteed the back interest. So on your real estate, but on your equipment for personal property tax, there's a different collection process that we would have to have undertaken, which we did not, but probably because of the scope and the small amount.
Sure, yeah. Is there a 5-year expiration on that? If we don't pursue
So-
that in court, we can't do it anymore?
Yeah, so there is a time frame within the courts that if it's not timely pursued, that there is a period of time where you just basically can no longer go after it. And that's part of the reason, you know, they willingly entered into a payment arrangement with us to avoid having to come to council and ask for, you know, a separate program. But, you know, we're now at the point where we need to do that because it's just, it's hard to get caught up from that being behind that much with all the interest.
Yep.
So, but yeah, if I tried at this point to take them to court over that, I wouldn't be successful.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions for Jessica? Okay, we'll go ahead and take the vote on writing off this amount that has been indicated and explained by our finance director. Councilor Riley,
Yes.
Councilor Pilch,
Yes,
Councilor Bradley, Councilor Daniele,
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence,
Yes.
Councilor Whitney,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Thank you very much for that detailed explanation, Jessica.
Thank you.
Our next item is number 108-21, to consider action relative to a consent agreement. Councilor Lawrence, could you please read the be it ordered?
Sure. Let's see, this is, be it ordered that the consent agreement between the town of Freeport and Phil Ricci, Lynn Ricci, Jeffrey Miller, Mary Lynn Miller regarding the subdivision violation on River Rock Lane be approved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Peter, there's a brief context here for explanation of this.
Yep, staff strongly recommends the council approve this. I'll give you the 30-second background. I know we have both the applicant and their counsel in the audience, but I think I don't think that there's much controversy here. The division that was an issue, well, it was a subdivision violation. They were essentially, the property owners were advised and given permits by town staff in the past to build the house on one of the lots that is now a subdivision violation. So that's a pretty good indicator that they did their due diligence and came in and tried to get approval from the town and there's documentable evidence showing that they took every step possible to clear the issue. The problem is that the subdivision happened, it was a non-exempt subdivision where previous staff and both them and the property owners thought it was an exempt subdivision. So there's absolutely there's no conflict, or there's no belief here on the part of staff. We actually feel bad for them. It was discovered when they came in to do a pre-application meeting for a subdivision with the town planning and code staff, that specifically that this previous action had clouded the property. So we're helping them. We're hopeful that we're helping them release the cloud on their property so they can divide their property further and convey it, and they won't be, essentially have problems through the title search process down the road.
Further questions for the manager on this item? Okay, we'll go ahead and take a vote on the consent agreement being accepted. Councilor Riley,
Yes.
Councilor Bradley. One more time, Ed, I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Daniele,
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence,
Yes.
Councilor Whitney,
Yes.
Councilor Pilch.
yes.
The chair votes yes. Great. Glad we got that resolved. Okay, we are at the point in our agenda for a substantial amount of actions, but it is a culmination of nearly 4 months of work. largely
Mr. Chair, I do have information on the previous item. Do you want to launch into budget, or do you want me the item that we were looking for? To
the
set
item that
public
we
hearing?
tabled, number 105-21.
Yep.
Great. Let's go ahead and take that up. Councilor Daniele, I believe you actually read the be it ordered. Let's read that again.
Jake, if you want to read the order and then stop, and then I'll insert the 5 businesses that we believe, I think the public hearing is for. We got a list here that we found, and I could read those for you.
Absolutely. Be it ordered that a public hearing be set for July 6, 2021 at the town council meeting that starts at 6:30 p.m. at Freeport Town Hall and virtually via Zoom technology to discuss special amusement permit renewals.
For Hilton Garden Inn, 5 Park Street, Athena's Cantina, US Route 1, Stars and Stripes Brewing, 8 Varney Road, Harrisika Inn, 162 Main Street, and Cadenza, 5 Depot Street.
Second.
And we have a further ordered.
Be it further ordered that copies be distributed equally between the town clerk's office, the town manager's office, and the Freeport Community Library for inspection by citizens during normal business hours, and the notice be placed on Freeport's local cable channel 3 and the town's website.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Peter, I'm nearly 100% certain of this, but all 5 of those businesses have had a special amusement permit in the past.
And I believe that they currently hold one that expires 7/31. I think all of the expiration dates are July 31, 21 for those 5 businesses. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bradley?
Could someone explain what a special amusement permit allows?
Entertainment and alcohol at the same time. We don't want people to get too rowdy here in Freeport. So that includes music, dancing, live music, anything like that. I think not jukeboxes, but I think anything above that. If you're going to be doing any entertainment with alcohol, you have to have a special amusement permit so that it's not a real barn burner.
Councilor Daniele, did you have a question?
If they all already have this, normally that's something that gets placed on the consent agenda. Why do we have to have a public hearing for it?
I believe that there are certain break periods where some of them get renewed and that require every couple of years. A few of our ordinances are written that way. I'll confirm that before we actually have the hearing, but yeah. So I think every few years when there's a renewal, I don't think the special amusement permits are auto renewal like a liquor license, for example.
All right, so 105-21 has been moved and seconded and explained. Let's go ahead and take a vote to set the public hearing for July 6th on this matter. Councilor Riley?
Yes.
Councilor Bradley?
Yes.
Councilor Daniele?
Yes.
Councilor Lawrence?
Yes.
Councilor Whitney?
Yes.
Councilor Pilch?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. We have a public hearing for July 6th on 105-21. Okay, so the next several items requiring action can all be ganged together because they all relate to adoption of all of the elements of our town budget for the next fiscal year, which starts on July 1, FY22. And this is a presentation from our finance director, Jessica Malloy, who has put in an enormous amount of work in organizing this for us. And we have elements of the budget broken out by major category, capital, TIF, operating, et cetera, which Jessica will go through. So Jessica, do you really want to say to have an adoption on each element, or can we gang them together at the end?
I believe as long as the be it orders are read to have the language included or read as presented, I believe you would be fine with that. I don't think they need to be separate items per se, as long as they're all read in totality. Like I would need all those state funds individually to be accepted and allowed. Peter, did you feel different?
Oh, I agree with what you just said.
Okay.
I think we should
think for ease of presentation, I think maybe we'll hear from you first, and then we can go through each of those That way we
If
can get
you-
our questions out on the table and make any adjustments before we actually have to adopt something.
Yeah,
And I was
that's-
gonna say, I think that is why we break it out this way, so that we have pauses to say, if there are certain areas that are in question, it's easier with it broken up, that we're not having to redo the entire motion every time. It can be just that section, so.
Yeah, and I think what we've done in the past that has held water, every place you see a bar on the agenda, I would read the order and have a motion and a vote. Then when you get to the item 11221, which is the operating budget, essentially, there's a be it ordered that the following appropriations be made, as listed on the agenda, totaling, appropriations of 12,354,183, with estimated revenues totaling 4,883,100,000 until, like that way. So like the bold sections on those charts, if we read those so that we can error check to make sure, when you actually take the vote, that it references to this printed agenda in case anybody has any question of that in the future. That's a pretty safe way to do it.
And
Okay.
this is
so-
what the auditors base their audit on, so that's why they need to see all the figures.
Right. All right. So that we have a clear record then, Jessica, maybe if you could just very briefly summarize each of these items, and then we'll go back and have questions on the specific item numbers 109, 110, 111, 112, et cetera, after you've explained sort of what we're doing with
Sure.
each of these, so we can finalize and be specific with our questions.
Sure. So item 109 gives the authorization of the town to accept any state funds that it's eligible for during the fiscal year. So we do label some out within our operating budget, but sometimes there are other funds that become available. And this just allows us to be able to accept those state revenues when they become available. It lists a few of them individually, which again, we do have some of those budgeted specifically for in the operating budget. But then we have that all-encompassing statement that says in all other state funds that are not included in those line items. Item 110 is the Winslow Park budget. That is funded and handled by user fees. So there typically is not a lot of discussion that goes on with that, given that it's specific to the users of the park. And then item 111 relates to our non-emergency transport, which is an enterprise fund. So that is separate than the operating budget. And, this, as previously discussed, this is reduced this year to reflect the elimination of the rescue billing service that we had previously been providing. And this budget recommends the removal of that service. And then item 112 is your operating budget that gets broken down by major category for expenses, as well as we break out the estimated revenues into tax and non-tax. And it may be worthwhile in the motion to mention the amount to be raised by taxation of that 6,771,083. And then it further orders for the capital budget adoption, which had previously been appropriated when we reviewed the capital budget process. And I think that
Then the last
Final
one is
TIF.
the TIF fund,
correct.
right? Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll take up, well, first of all, questions for the finance manager, Peter.
I just want to, I think I will probably have a couple of questions, but I know at the last budget meeting, we had a lot of discussion about combing through specifically revenues were still on the table, about whether we could go higher in any specific place. Jessica and I spent probably a good chunk of time this afternoon prior to the council meeting. Apologize for the lateness, but at least we get it done before the budget vote instead of afterwards. That would have been a disaster. looking for revenue adjustments, and I recalculated about 6 or 7 of her revenue projections on the fly to her. She liked it because they all came out that we were like within, $10,000 on each one to the actual what the current proposals are. I'm pretty comfortable with what we're actually seeing, and that's using data, current fiscal year data with 2 weeks remaining in the fiscal year. So using the actual performance of like excise and vehicle registration, boat registrations, state revenue sharing. And then we calculated any of the changes to those revenue levels next year. And I know like for revenue sharing, I was trying to push to bring it up a little bit higher, and it was like either 476 or 776, and my calculation.
Yeah, we're budgeting 725 and you calculated
725, and I said we should be able to do
727.
726, and I'm like, what's it listed? And she's like 725. I was like, because I thought I was going to find some revenue there. So I'm very comfortable with the revenue levels, and contrary to what was originally presented, I think they're flat level. I won't say conservative or liberal. They're exactly based on our revenues this year. In most cases, in a few cases increased when we know that there are going to be significant increases like on revenue sharing, which is probably closer to the actual numbers than we've ever done, at least in this will be my 10th budget here. Through 2 finance directors, they're really close to what I think we're projecting. I don't feel they're dangerous at all, but they're just, I think if we make that revenue budget, I'd be pretty happy. That being said, I understand there was, a lot of, it's not my decision, it's ultimately the council's decision. And there was a lot of discussion about increasing those revenue amounts. I also wanted to just take 30 seconds and present. I asked Jessica, and then I went back and did one too, to look at I'll put it up on the screen, our performance over the last 2 budget years and last 3 budget years. And I think that this is important to look at here. I did 2 calculations. One was the 2-year budget comparison. So that's the FY21, the current fiscal year budget, and the proposed budget, and what those together would do. This is cumulative. This is not an average per year. This is cumulative over that 2-year period. It resulted in a tax levy increase of 1.65%. So that's like 1.77% this year and negative 0.17%. Is that correct, Jessica? For
0.12.
0.12% for last year. Meaning over 2 years, our tax levy, meaning the actual tax bill we send to the public, has increased 1.65%. This is just something anybody that knows consumer price index knows it's an easy and cheap way to balance, measure against inflation.
Benchmark.
So 4-point benchmark, 4.3% over the most recent 24 months. And then the 3-year budget comparison, our levy increase actually goes down when you add in 2 years ago, because we had 2 negative budget years in a row. We had FY20 and FY21 were both negative levy years, negative 0.17% and negative 0.12%, and then 1.77% this year. So the total levy increase, not the average, the total increase over a 3-year period, 1.48%, when the consumer price index, which is, another cheap and easy way to benchmark against inflation, is 5.68%. I got away from doing this over the past couple of years because it kind of felt gratuitous to be showing that we were below inflation, but we had done it probably for 5 or 6 years prior, and the council always wanted to see this. So what I'm getting at here is to the extent that there is reservation or nervousness about the fact that the state, the rate of the local levy increase, I share the concern of the council, and I'm not trying to minimize it, that the total tax levy increase is higher than that 4.3 and 5 point whatever percent for the 2 and 3 year average. I agree, but just trying to illustrate to the public, to the extent that it helps the public to see that, show that increase is not coming from local operations. So that's all.
Councilor Bradley? You got to unmute, Ed.
Sorry, Peter, at the last meeting, we were working on a number that would bring us to 0. And you, at the end of the meeting, said you had an idea that maybe could help us get further down. And I think that didn't work out. Yeah,
I had two expenditure ideas that did not pan out. Both were payroll cost related items about potential staffing adjustments. One I don't have enough information on. It does have to do with the item that we talked about really briefly about potentially contracting out general assistants and replacing that position with or at least, 0.25 full-time equivalent of that position. As many know, Joanna in our office is leaving us in the upcoming fiscal year. She's announced her retirement. Part of that was lowering that amount, but we don't have a firm commitment on that yet. We are talking with several agencies, one in particular, which I'll mention, which is Freeport Community Services, with kind of outsourcing that function, but we aren't close enough to have an actual number to present probably until the next council meeting. So that I'm sad about that. There may be a budget reduction there. And the other one was in a payroll item that didn't, I'm looking at it, did not warrant that we could lower it. We were right on the money. The other three were significant revenue investigations that I wanted to do that I just kind of described. And I thought we could get a lot closer in revenue sharing, excise or vehicle registrations, any of those items, but I'm not comfortable. I won't argue too loudly against it if somebody wants to make those changes, but I wasn't comfortable. I thought we were as close as we possibly can, to coming out flat at this point.
So one of the ones that you focused on was revenue sharing, and there was a sort of a fluctuation in the amount of percentage that we thought was going to be approved. Do you have any better information about that, or is it just the same uncertainty?
I checked on that today too. I don't think it's passed at the state level, although in a couple of days it may have. We're still going off the 4% number, not the 5% number, because that 4% number looks likely to what is going to pass, not the 5% that was passed out of committee that is not included in the governor's negotiated budget proposal right now.
Okay, so the governor has 4%?
The original budget proposal was 5%. No, the original committee recommendation, I think, was 4.25. The budget proposal, I'm going to get them backwards. One was 4.25, the other one was 5. I think the governor's recommendation and the negotiated amount that is going around the legislature right now is 4.25, not the 5% that was recommended by committee. Thank you. That's what it was. Yeah.
And we've been using 4.25.
We are using the accurate number that's likely to happen, I think. Yeah, I mean, there's a chance they might lower that number if they run into a snag and they need to find money in the state budget. It could go lower. Currently, it's either 3 or 3.25% in the current year. So it is an increase over this year, significant.
I understand, but I'm really just trying to understand if something changes in Augusta and it goes up, and we make adjustments to get our tax lower if we want to.
You can do a supplemental appropriation of revenue, and you can use that money to lower the tax rate if it happens before. Jessica, do you want to give me a deadline of when that's September, October? Does that sound about right?
Okay. Will you keep us
September.
surprised? Will you keep us surprised to say if that number changes in a way that could affect the tax rate for the?
Well, when we start meeting in person next month in the council chambers, I'll even get up and do a dance if it goes down, Ed. So
I'll be glad to watch you.
on
Thank you.
TV. Yep.
And the final number then that we have to raise by taxes is something under $100,000? Do you
Yeah, it's
have
about 96, Jessica. Is that-
96.
Not 96,000 and change. So it represents a 1.7% increase on the tax levy that we're asking for from the tax base.
Right. The amount that it's the amount of increase over today's tax rate, not the amount we're raising. It's the amount of increase over what we're currently raising.
Projecting, yes.
Correct. That's all things. I mean, that's a huge projection that has all kinds of error built into it, as we've discussed with multiple times. But that's assuming everything stays equal. We will need to raise that amount. And if everything stayed equal, the tax rate would go up by that amount. That's not a guarantee, but it's a good measuring block, and focusing on the levy keeps us based on reality, keeps us responsible to the taxpayer, and it avoids using valuation increases and valuation increases is a shell game to hide our actual tax impact that we're having. That's why I focus on the levy number extensively.
Thank you.
Councilor Riley.
And what is our mill rate compared to the other 14 communities? Where do we fall in the Greater Portland Council of Government?
Mid-low, but I'm not going to be be able to answer that question. I could do some research for the next council meeting. I can
So-
only say what the current year tax rate is. We won't, you know, anything beyond that as a projection would be on our part and their part, but you know, we're close, if not over 100% valuation right now. I think we're significantly over 100% valuation just because of the real estate market, or that would be undervalued. But we're within probably the 10% range that we're required to be by law, like most of the municipalities around here are. I would say we are mid-low, but it's really difficult to use tax rate as a comparison tool between towns because it doesn't account for the difference in property values. For example, if you use Gray versus Bodenham versus Portland versus Freeport, none of those property valuations on the real estate market for the same house are comparable.
But if we
Nor is there always the same level of service being provided in calculation of that as well. So
And that's part of the reason that I
That's
like to
tough.
focus on levy, because that keeps us true to what we're actually, the increased levy is the actual additional bill we're sending to the taxpayer, all of us as taxpayers at large. That's the bill we're sending out is going to be $97,000 higher this year than it was last year. You could, by using potential tax rate increase, mill rate increase, things like that, you could hide that number and make it look really pretty, but you can't hide a levy increase, and you can't, you know, you can't make it look pretty. It's still an increase.
Councilor Pilch?
Just for clarity, more of a statement to question, but looking for validation that the statement's correct. Although we're only raising the levy by $97,000 or so this year, we're going to collect on behalf of the school district an additional $795,000 that it's going to show up in everybody's tax bill, but that we as a council don't have a lot of impact on. That's really something the school board does, and we just collect on their behalf, right?
correct.
That's 100% accurate, and that's what I was referring to when I said there are probably still a lot of valid concerns on the council about the tax rate impact and the levy impact from other taxing units. I completely share those concerns.
and county government's the same way. Their amounts higher.
Another 40.
By 42,000.
I mean, they're a little bit higher, probably per capita percentage increase than we are, but they're still a pretty low number. You know, it's pennies. You know, it's $10 out of someone's pocket essentially, as opposed to $15 out of someone's pocket for the town or something like that.
Doug, I'm sorry if I cut you off. Did you have another comment or question?
No, I'm ready to.
Okay. Other questions for the finance director, Councilor Daniele?
This is more for the council, but can we keep this as an agenda item future after this to talk about tax rate increases and maybe, you know, voting and stuff like that that has to go with these tax rate increases? And specifically, do we do anything for seniors in their home that they get like a discount on taxes, or is there any program like that for someone?
I would love that.
Who's gonna speak first?
I knew
Right.
There
I
are
thought
programs
that's like a-
available.
yeah.
There are programs available that have been discussed by several previous councils, I think at least on 2 different occasions, and nobody has wanted to move forward. I would say they're pretty minimal, but a few communities do have some pretty good like volunteer work programs where people, you know, essentially retired seniors, you know, volunteer at their community center or at the town hall, you know, to work off, you know, or to lower their tax commitment. There are some tax deferral options that were kind of, I should say, pretty unpopular with previous councils when we looked at it. Nobody wanted to jump on those, but those are all political decisions that you 7 councilors can make. There are a few programs. There's nothing that's like Florida's program where your tax rate freezes, and you know, when you pass away or deed the property or sell the property, then the tax rate increases and the next person has to pay it. We don't have tools like that available in Maine, but there are a few small tax breaks that can be made for senior citizens. So I don't want to, you know, downplay this.
The state has a program in place too. You have to be under a certain income threshold to qualify for it, but the state has a circuit breaker tax bill program.
Yeah, those are for very low income, if I remember correctly, or they're significantly low income, probably lower than most seniors in Freeport.
In addition, I just would like to add to Jake that, you know, the state does also offer homestead exemptions. And I just would like to take this public platform to let people know that if you have lived in your home in the town of Freeport for longer than 12 months, please stop by our assessing department prior to April 1st of any given year and fill out this application. It's a one and done. You only have to fill it out once. And currently you get $25,000 off of your assessed value of your home. And that's a direct savings to all property owners that have owned a home in the town of Freeport for over 12 months. In addition to that, I'm sorry?
Primary residency though.
Primary residences, exactly.
So it doesn't cover second homes, Airbnbs, things like that, investment properties, commercial property.
Correct. You know, and I would also like to just state that, you know, here in finance, we work very diligently, in particular with the senior community, but really with all residents that it's applicable to in working out payment arrangements. We only send out 2 tax bills from an economy of scale standpoint. I am more than happy to accept money every month of the year. If you want to budget accordingly, you know, based off of your prior year taxes, I can work with residents to divide that over 12 months and get it so that their taxes are paid, especially on mortgage properties. And I bring this up because I work with people all the time on doing that. And it's amazing to me the number of people that are surprised by the fact that we do that. And a lot of them are pleased, and you can set it up with your financial institution to have them do an automatic bill pay. I mean, we've made huge advancements in technology on being able to accept these type of payments with minimal impact to residents. And, you know, we also have a general assistance office that, though, you know, we may not be able to directly help with taxes in that capacity, the general assistance can help with other bills for seniors, whether it be heating or medical bills. And, you know, we have a lot of special revenues that are set up for specific circumstances, as you all probably remember, or during COVID, and even still to this date, we received a ton of COVID money from residents to help other residents with things of these natures. And, you know, we're always exploring these options to help residents as much as we can in getting their taxes to a comfortable point where they can then, you know, afford the monthly payment at that juncture. So just wanted to take that public platform to let people know that there are options, despite there not being a specific senior option. And I believe, to add on to Peter's comment, with past council, you know, that there really was not a lot of temperament on those councils to have, you know, basically other residents absorb and pay more in taxes to shelter someone else in their taxes. So
That was,
but again,
that was
it's
explicitly discussed. I think that's important to bring up. That mentality, you know, that's completely dependent on the 7 sitting councilors at the time. There may be an appetite for that on the current council where there wasn't before.
correct.
But the argument that was made was concerns about shifting, whether for seniors or young people or whatever, you know, one segment of the population's tax burden onto another segment. That's a political discussion that, you know, can be had and can change from year to year with councils. So if you want to look at those options in detail, maybe we could put it on a future agenda, and we'd be glad to report on, you know, any new programs that might have come up in the past 2 years since it was last looked at.
Councilor Bradley?
Yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with our budget process, just even though it may not have seemed that way at times. But I do think that a conversation about the degree of conservative planning is in order for all the reasons that have just been discussed, and I'd like to see us have that. And there were a couple issues that related to particularly our investment policy that I'd like to make sure we talk about as we have these general conversations about budget going forward, because there's a lot of money at stake there. And I really, as I've said, don't really truly understand why we get so little return from so much capital. So those are things that, and I'm sure other councilors have ideas or questions that we could throw into that. So we're not talking about an immediate impact. We're talking more about policy, and that can guide us when we get to the exact numbers we deal with every year.
I second that discussion
I'm writing that
happening.
down to add to an agenda in a future meeting, potentially in July or August.
Yeah, I recommend that as well. We used to talk about investment policy prior to Jessica being here. It seemed like every year, every 2 years, and it doesn't seem like it's been a discussion at least 5 or 6 years. So it may be appropriate. It's a good time to revisit that policy and what the town's investment standards are. Just because it hasn't been talked about in 6, 7 years. So I'm all for that. I think that would be a great idea.
Councillor Riley?
Yes, that's why it's a good idea to review virtually anything that we have before us, because many times we're out of date and need to bring things into focus. But I would like to commend Jessica and her staff for the excellent job that they do. And I really appreciate all the hard work that goes into this preparation. And if we look at other towns and the hair pulling that goes on at budget time versus the degree of ease that we face with budget. So again, thank you, Jessica, and thank your group.
Thank you. I will make sure to let everybody know. I did just want to point out in discussion with the seniors and any programs, and this isn't necessarily in relation to seniors as it is our total tax base. I have a historical analysis of the number of 30-day notices that get sent out because they will be going out next week, unfortunately. But our 5-year historical number of 30-day notices that get sent out is 262. And that goes from a high of 332 notices that were sent out last year to a low of 237 in 2016. This year, we currently have 269 notices that will potentially go out next week. So, from a collection standpoint, we are right on track with where we usually are this time of year. And we literally just have some residents that take the full amount of time awarded to them by the state to pay taxes. Regardless of what we do for collection efforts, they just feel the point of foreclosure is when they are due to pay their taxes. And so I bring that up because at the same time that we will be sending out 269 lien notices, we have currently only one property from 2019 that has, because the 2019 tax year has been foreclosed this past January. We have one property that's in a payment arrangement to get that paid off. We foreclosed on no properties. So I just give you that insight to let you know how diligently we do work with residents to get them to the point of payment before their houses are foreclosed. So
I can't remember the last time we foreclosed on an unwilling or someone who was trying to, it's never happened that I'm aware of, somebody that was trying to work their situation and to make, to try to make their tax debt correct. That's not our goal. That's absolutely not the way we try to do business. Obviously, we want everyone to pay our equal amounts, but primary residences are not targeted. We will take every conceivable step, and I think only resort to foreclosure if someone says, forget about this. I'm not paying my taxes ever. Come try to get it from me. That's about the only scenario that I've ever seen a property go to foreclosure, or an investment property that someone ignores, communications or something like that, or walks away from. So
yeah, I have not, in my time here, I have not foreclosed on a primary residence yet. So,
Councillor Pilch?
I have a process question related to the capital budget. So tonight we're voting on appropriations to the capital budget. For each of those items, do we get to revisit those and approve the individual items? So I'm looking at things like the comprehensive plan update, downtown revisioning. We appropriate the money tonight. Is that the last time we see those things come before us, or do we then have to approve a contract for a comprehensive plan update? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll see it again at the point of awarding the contract based on the dollar amount of it. Most of the capital items are of a dollar value that will meet that authority to come back to council and actually award the bid.
I think everything on that list, I think, will come back in front of you at some point.
What's that threshold? Because I see some like $4,000 items, $7,000.
Those won't. Sorry, yeah, those. So I shouldn't say everything. Yeah, those few $1,000 items are actually within the purchasing authority. They don't need to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So
What's the
Like
threshold?
the computer upgrades will not come before you. There's no necessarily established threshold other than the 100,000 mark that has to go before council for authorization. But like the computer upgrades, because each individual PC that we get is less than the $5,000, though the appropriation is 25,000, you know, each unit is under, I'll just use the threshold of 5 because that's what makes it a capital plan.
So
Those would not come before you, or like the file digitization of 10,000, you know, that service will not come before you, but.
the purchasing thresholds are $5,000 and $10,000 for different steps that need to be taken. So whether they need to be
Right.
competitively bid or just get quotes or nothing done. So over $10,000 would be a competitive bid. And those are most often going to be awarded by you. Any item that's not awarded by our purchasing policy guideline also has to come to the council. So if we don't do a, if it's a $7,000 item and we don't want to do bids on it because it's a sole source contract or only one person makes that actually requires coming to the council to waive that purchasing policy as well. So pretty much any of these items, I think, that are in the, I'll read through them, solid waste generator, facility lighting, Spar Cove Road rebuild, if that's to a different contractor than whoever gets our annual paving award contract. If it is, we'll just use that person. It's separately awarded. The Hunter Road Field parking lot, if that's a single contract. The computer upgrades are individual. The digitization are probably a bunch of small projects. The maintenance tractor is probably one single purchase. Comp plan update is probably one single contract. The downtown revisioning is two single contracts as has been contemplated. So those would both come in front of the council. That's probably a good idea. And then the street sweeper is a large item, 280,000.
So can I summarize? It sounds like if it's $100,000, it has to come, $100,000 and above, it has to come before the council. And if it's above $10,000, but out of the stream of our normal purchasing policy, then that would come to the council as well.
The 100,000 will require, that's the bid, that's the bond number that you're referring, right, Jessica?
Yes, yes,
That actually that is a vote, correct?
yes, sorry, yes.
Yep.
So
So
you'll 100,000 needs to be a vote by the town citizens?
yeah, if it's bonded. That's
If
why
it's
the
bonded.
$600,000 bridge bond.
Okay.
You'll see most of the individual projects on here that are, most of the individual purchases that are over 10,000 on your council agenda.
Got it. Unless it's part of the mainstream purchasing that goes along with whatever it says in our purchasing policy.
Yeah, so, but part of what I'm thinking is like, ACAF Performing Arts Center, $75,000. That's not going to be awarded because that's a purchase that's already contemplated in the, you guys have already looked at what that is. The FEDC contribution, that's going to FEDC. There's no competitiveness to it, but usually the awards of any large scale purchase over $10,000 are ending up on your agenda.
Got it. So if it's an outside vendor, third party vendor, that kind of thing, we would see it.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Mostly equipment, large ticket equipment purchases, things like that. Yeah.
Okay, we ready to move through the 5 or 6 items here for adopting the budget?
Yes.
The first one is 109-21. Councilor Riley, could you please read the be it ordered?
In order that the following categories for state funds be accepted for fiscal year 2022. 1, municipal revenue sharing. 2, local road assistance. 3, state aid to education, including federal pass-through funds and property. 4, public library state aid per capita. 5, civil emergency funds, emergency management assistance. 6, snowmobile registration funds. 7, tree growth reimbursement. 8, veterans exemption reimbursement. 9, business tax reimbursement. 10, all other state funds not included in items 1 through 9.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? We are accepting state funds with this vote. All right, we'll go ahead and take a vote on item number 109-21. Counselor Riley,
Yes.
Counselor Bradley,
Yes.
Counselor Whitney,
Yes.
Counselor Pilch,
Yes.
Counselor Lawrence,
Yes.
Counselor Daniele,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. That portion is adopted. Our next item is the Winslow Park budget. Counselor Bradley, could you please read the be it ordered?
Be it ordered that $337,960 be approved for the Winslow Park budget from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, and $23,000 be approved for the Harb Cottage budget from July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation on the Winslow Park budget? All right, we'll go ahead and take the vote on item number 110-21. Counselor Riley,
Yes.
Counselor Bradley,
Yes.
Counselor Whitney,
Yes.
Counselor Pilch,
Yes.
Counselor Daniele,
Yes.
Counselor Lawrence,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, Winslow Park adopted. The next item is our non-emergency transport. Counselor Whitney, could you please read the be it ordered?
Be it ordered that the non-emergency transport budget in the amount of $1,500 be approved for the fiscal year of 2022.
Could we rephrase that as 100,000?
$115,000.
Thank you. Yes.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the Nets budget? Counselor Riley,
Yes.
Counselor Bradley,
Yes.
Counselor Whitney,
Yes.
Counselor Pilch,
Yes.
Counselor Lawrence,
Yes.
Counselor Daniele.
Yes.
Okay, item number 111-21 has been adopted, 7-0.
Did the chair vote yes on that or not?
I'm sorry, what was that question, Doug?
Did the chair vote yes on that or not?
Yeah, the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
All right, so the last one, which takes up several pages, without any particular objection, to make it easier, I'll go ahead and read this one. This is the elements of our operating budget, which includes capital planning, reserve funding, and the TIF, specific TIF fund appropriations. And after I read the elements here and get the dollar amounts on the record, then we can have a brief discussion if needed. Be it ordered that the following appropriations, this is item number 112-21. Be it ordered that the following appropriations be made to the several departments for purposes named, that the following revenues estimated be adopted, and that the following amounts be raised by taxation. Said action for fiscal year July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022, known as our municipal budget. This includes FY22 appropriations totaling $12,354,183. FY22 estimated revenues of $4,883,100, including and in addition to $700,000 transferred from undesignated funds, and a total of $6,771,083 be raised by taxation, for a total revenue to match the appropriation of $12,354,183. Be it further ordered that the following appropriations be made for the following capital items. Projects listed below for the capital budget for FY22 be adopted, totaling $1,247,000 for a total capital budget of like amount. And be it further ordered that the following amounts be appropriated from the reserve funds for items approved as presented on the agenda, totaling $1,247,000. This is an allocation of reserve funding to cover the capital budget expenditures. And be it further ordered that the following appropriations be made for items and projects listed below, that the Destination Freeport TIF budget for FY22 be adopted as presented below, totaling $375,000.
Second.
Okay, so that is a motion and a second to move all of the elements as summarily described as our capital budget, our operating budget, our funding allocations and appropriations from reserves to fund the capital budget and the TIF budget. Any specific questions for the finance director or Peter on that motion? Jessica, the silence is an affirmation of your excellent diligence and explanation and illustration of our budget that you have rendered the 7 of us without questions. Great job. So we have a motion on the entire budget. I'm sorry, the entire operating budget, which includes the capital and the reserve funding for the capital and the TIF budget that's been moved and seconded. We ready to take a vote? Councillor Riley?
Yes.
Councillor Bradley?
Yes.
Councillor Whitney?
Yes.
Councillor Pilch?
Yes.
Councillor Lawrence?
Yes.
Councillor Daniele?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Our FY22 budget is adopted. Great work, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank
See
you very
next
much.
year, Jessica.
That's a great
You too, Peter.
accomplishment. I actually enjoy the budget process, maybe not so much the 11 o'clock at night meetings, but there is no other process participation as a counselor that lets me know more about what's going on in town than dissecting and going through all of the elements of these various budgets, and that is made dramatically easier by the orderly and logical presentation of the material from our staff. So thank you very much. And that is the last item for action on our agenda this evening. Councillor Riley?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. We have to take a vote. Councillor Riley?
Yes.
Councillor Bradley?
Yes.
Councillor Whitney?
Yes.
Councillor Pilch?
Yes.
Councillor Lawrence?
Yep.
Councillor Daniele?
Yes.
7-0. We're adjourned. Our next meeting is on July 6th.
Did you vote, John?
The chair votes yes to adjourn.
Our next meeting is scheduled to be live.
On July 6th will be chaired by Vice Chair Tony Whitney. I will be out of town. I thought I was going to be back. I had made travel plans for that weekend and specifically was arriving back on Tuesday at 3 in the afternoon and was notified last week that Delta Airlines changed my plane flight and I'm not going to be able to make the meeting. So thank you for supporting Tony and chairing the next meeting on July 6th. Jake?
Too bad it can't be on Zoom, so you could be doing it on the airplane.
One person couldn't they? As long as
But he can. Yes. He can't. He won't be able to vote, but he can definitely tune in if he buys. John, you know what? I'll give you the town credit card. You can get the $8.99 free Wi-Fi upgrade. That's a business expense. Well served to have our chair tuned in from Delta high in the sky.
Yeah. All right. We'll check that out.
We are working on getting Zoom functioning. We're doing experiments right now to try to make it so we can patch Zoom into the council chambers, which is going to be really interesting. And it might be a crash and burn on the first meeting, but eventually we're going to make it so people can remote in. The council, the remote participation bill is up in front of the legislature for discussion right now. So there may be potential for having you guys zoom in, but right now it won't be allowed by law as of July 1. But the public can absolutely zoom in. So we're going to try to make that happen. We've got them working on patching laptop feeds back and forth to the screen and then trying to make that go live on the broadcast that goes out too. It's like a 3-way zigzag that has to happen. So we can get somebody zooming in from the audience and they can get pushed out as just like they're speaking in the council chambers seamlessly.
Great.
So maybe a crash and burn, but we're trying to make it happen. So bear with us in the first meeting in July.
Cool.
All right. And I'd be happy to take a tech call from Logically so I can get my email account reestablished. I feel I'm lost here without.
I will make sure that that it's a priority. Jessica and I will talk with them tomorrow to make sure that they're giving you guys calls directly, which should have happened already. You have my deepest apologies for that.
Ed, you had something else?
No, I was just going to jump on your back on that one. I feel left out too.
Yeah. Great.
Are there
All
any
right,
requirements for being live in person? Like, are we supposed to be masked, or is the just to give guidance?
Well, you haven't done a live meeting yet, have you? That's true. No, there'll be no requirements either on number of attendees. If the council wishes, we could do that, but there are no state requirements. There's no you can wear whatever you want for a mask, both the public. Some people might not be comfortable without wearing a mask. But that's why
Coat
we're
and
going
tie?
to try to offer the Zooming. Go ahead, Ed.
Coat and tie?
Or
I
a
usually skip the tie except for on budget adoption night. I felt risky tonight, so
And we do not put out a menu option on the snacks either.
Yeah.
no, we might want to wait on the snacks until COVID is over, possibly handing stuff around. Maybe that might be the one thing. I don't know. It's up to you guys, though.
Well, if it's a double stuffed Oreo, you're gonna pass on it?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all.
Good night.
I-
All right, Ed.
Good night. I'm gonna stop the feed.